evening and welcome. Tonight, a building under construction collapses in Kano, killing at least one person, as many others are feared dead or trapped, in the structure. Chief Executive Officer of NNPC Limited, Mele Kyari, raises concerns over the involvement of critical segments of the society in crude oil theft, says trend threatens the nation's economy. The fireworks in the PDP continue. Former Kaduna State Governor cautions Governor Wike over his anger. Governor Wike asked McAfee to focus on winning Kaduna for the party.
On business news tonight, Nigeria National Petroleum Company confirms its plan to issue its first IPO on the domestic stock markets by June next year.
On sports news tonight, Serena Williams signals she is not quite ready for retirement after advancing to the second round of the US Open with straight sets win over Danka Kovnic.
From the nation's capital, House of Representatives Committee on Finance uncovers discrepancies in the funds remitted to the account of the federal government by some revenue-generating agencies.
News from London. The UN Secretary-General says that Pakistan faces a monsoon on steroids after floodwaters submerge a third of the country.
We begin on a rather sad note with the collapse of a three-story building in the Beirut Road area of Kano metropolis today. So far, at least one body has been recovered from the rubble and 2 people rescued, while emergency workers are still working to rescue other people trapped in the building, which was under construction before it fell around 3 p.m. The Kano State Deputy Governor has visited the site and described the incident as a huge disaster.
Tension high in hope of possible rescue of people trapped under this rubble of the 3-story building which went down in the Beirut Road in the Kano metropolis early Tuesday morning. Everyone lending a hand, both registered rescue agents and individuals. But in the heat of that, law enforcement agents are trying hard to maintain some order. Before long, a victim is brought out alive.
Around 3 o'clock, we're in the market. There are many people under the building. People that are selling and people that they want to rest after they see the sun. They want to rest under the shade. Unfortunately, we just heard something shouting. Then it now perished with people. Because when it fell down, there are many people under the building. So out of them, there are people that they take to the hospital that they die, they just wound. But up to now, there are people under the building. We don't know their condition.
There is no official figure as to the number of people possibly trapped in the building, which is said to have served as phone association market.
Because there are people that are making phone call inside before that they should come and rescue them. No way breathing. That people should please and come and help them. But up to now, we didn't see anybody out. But we're calling their number, it's no more going. So we don't know, maybe is their battery low or maybe they have gone.
The state government is promising to deploy every resource to aid the rescue efforts before looking into the immediate and remote causes of the collapse.
What we are expecting people to do now is to cooperate and allow the technical people do their job and see, because there is possibility that there are people under this place so that their lives can be saved. At the moment, the government has deployed all that it can to make sure that lives are being saved, if they are possible, before we now come into the issue of what is the basis or the reason that this catastrophe has happened.
Another lucky victim is rescued. Both man and machine continue work while onlookers join in prayers that more people are saved alive.
Government officials, religious bodies, security agencies, and even some members of staff of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited have been fingered over the theft of the nation's crude oil. A group CEO of the NNPC Limited, Mr. Mele Kyari, made this disclosure today, explaining that a network of vandals is working in collaboration with other individuals with some of the stolen products found in churches and mosques. Mr. Kyari, who was speaking at the 49th session of the weekly ministerial briefing in Abuja, also said that the entire network of pipelines for petroleum products distribution in the country have been shut down as a result of activities of vandals. Our State House correspondent Gloria Omezoke has more.
The Group Chief Executive Officer of the NNPC Limited, Mr. Mele Kyari, has joined the list of guests to anchor the ministerial weekly briefing. He addresses upfront the subject of theft of the nation's crude oil, which has continued to dominate conversations for years. He absolves no one of complicity.
When a fire outbreak happened in one of our pipelines, now we discovered that some of the pipelines are actually connected into individuals' homes. And not only that, without really, with all sensitivity to our religious beliefs, some of the pipelines and some of the products that we found are actually in churches and in mosques. That means that everybody is involved. There is no way you will take product, bring in trucks in populated neighborhood, load it and leave without everybody else knowing about it. That everybody includes members of the community, members of the religious leadership, and also, and most likely, government officials of all natures, including security agency personnel. They are everywhere.
He agrees that the magnitude of theft and the impact on the nation's economy is undoubtedly substantial, but not up to 200 million barrels per day as reported. A National Reserve Company will be established to run the pipelines on a commercial basis to contain the menace.
Because of the very unfortunate acts of vandals along our major pipelines, from Atlas Copper all the way to Ibadan, and all the others connecting all the 27 depots that we have across the country, none of them can take delivery of product today. And the reason is very simple. For some of the lines, for instance, from Warri to Bini, we haven't operated line for 15 years. Every molecule of product that you put gets lost.
295 illegal connections, 344 illegal oil reservoirs, 759 metal tanks, 37 trucks, 450 boats, 355 cooking pots, items used by the vandals to carry out the activities, particularly in the Niger Delta region, have also been discovered by security operatives, and these have led to a number of arrests.
I told you there are 122 arrests. They will be named. But definitely the most important thing to do is to prosecute them and show to the world that it's wrong to do this, and that if you do, the law will catch up with them. That is why I said that the EFCC is following the cash.
Responding to questions on the high cost of importation of fuel, the group CEO disclosed that there is the feasibility that Nigeria would halt its importation of petroleum products by mid-2023.
Small modular condensate refineries that we're building, if that happens, and we are very optimistic it will happen, you will see that this country will now be a net exporter. As a matter of fact, it will be a hub of export of petroleum product, not just to the West African sub-region, but to the rest of the world. This will happen. The flow of supply will change. By middle of next year, it will change.
The group CEO has also responded to questions about the engagement of ex-Niger Delta militant, popularly known as Tom Polo, explaining that the federal government signed pipeline protection contracts with corporate entities, one of which Tom Polo has interests in order to man the right-of-way and manage members of the community. From the presidential villa, Gloria Omezoke, Channels Television News.
Politics now, and the crisis rocking the People's Democratic Party's leadership. Former governor of Kaduna State, Senator Ahmed Makafi, is calling on the River State Governor Nyesom Wike to sheath his sword for the good of all. Senator Makafi described Governor Wike as a loyal party man and urged him not to take any decision regarding his feud with the presidential candidate of the PDP based on anger. A former Kaduna State governor who was guest on our breakfast program, Sunrise Daily, believes the opposition parties should come together to wrestle power from the APC.
Decisions based on anger doesn't produce anything positive. I know him, I respect him, I believe we know each other. I know that he has contributed, not just me, many people know he has contributed, but many other people contributed in different ways and manners. And God gives and God takes. We have all looked for something at one particular time. Sometimes we got, sometimes we didn't get, but life goes on. We know that clearly the choice for voters in COP 2023 is to vote PDP. And I call on other opposition parties, let us come back home and do the needful for the sake of this country.
And in swift response, the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, has taken a swipe at Senator Makafi, asking him to focus on winning Kaduna State for the PDP rather than speaking about him. The governor gave the response during the commissioning of the Obunabali Sandfield, an estate layout in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital.
He said, Wike, yes, but other people. I don't know who is competing, who said other people have not. What I want to advise Makafi, look, you have a job. Make sure PDP wins Kaduna State. That is their job. Leave Wike. Leave Wike. Take it upon yourself that Kaduna falls. I don't want to hear excuses. They did election. They didn't get election. Make sure PDP wins in Kaduna State. That is all I've told everybody. Operation show your deliver your state. Don't use any person's state to add up. So it's unfortunate. And that tells you when I said the day I will speak. Some of you, those you rate, you won't even buy them for a naira. At the appropriate time, I will tell you whom they are, the kind of characters we are talking about. People will speak here today, tomorrow they say different things. You begin to wonder, is it the leaders you are talking about? Meanwhile, Wike and his team were busy bringing down every structure of APC here, providing the dividends of democracy to our people. Your own state, you're only busy talking about Wike.
The presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress in the APC, Bola Tinubu, today met with former President Goodluck Jonathan. Mr. Tinubu was accompanied to Jonathan's residence in the Federal Capital Territory by the vice presidential candidate of the party, Kashim Shettima. The governor of Ogun State, Dapo Abiodun, the governor of Plateau State, Samuel Lalong, and Bello Matawalle of Zamfara State, among others. Apart from a picture that surfaced online following the meeting, details of what was discussed is not yet known. In recent times, APC stalwarts have made efforts to woo the former president to the ruling party.
I will come, sir.
In part two, after the break, Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority threatens to suspend operating certificates of local airlines over debt. That's in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us watching the News at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos, here's a reminder of our top stories. Building under construction collapses in Kano, killing at least one person, as many others are feared trapped in the structure. Chief Executive Officer of NNPC Limited, Mele Kyari, raises concerns over the involvement of critical segments of the society in crude oil theft, says trend threatens the nation's economy. The fireworks in the PDP continue. Former Kaduna State Governor cautions Governor Wike over his anger. Governor Wike asks McAfee to focus on winning Kaduna for the party. And in international news, the UN Secretary General says that Pakistan is facing a monsoon on steroids after floods submerged a third of the country. The human rights violation case brought by the Yoruba self-determination activist Sunday Adeyemo against the Department of State Services today received a huge blow. It comes out in appeal court set aside the 20 billion naira in damages awarded in his favor last year by an Oyo State High Court on September 17, 2021, following the violent invasion of his residence in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. Mr. Adeyemo, popularly called Sunday Igboho, had gone to court to challenge the action by the DSS, which led to the death of some of his aides. Delivering the judgment in an appeal filed by the federal government, Justice Muslim Hassan held that Justice Ladiran Akintola acted on the wrong principles of law and awarded the cost to Igboho. Stay with the court. The Federal High Court in Abuja has fixed October 19th, 20th and 21st, 2022 for the trial of the suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari, and 4 others who are being prosecuted by the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency on allegations of illicit drug deal. Justice Emeka Nwite fixed the dates while ruling on the bail application filed by the former head of Inspector General of Police Intelligence Response Team. Justice Nwite held that the applicants failed to present sufficient materials and evidence to warrant the granting of the fresh application and reaffirmed his earlier ruling of March 28, 2022, ordered an accelerated hearing.
The dream of suspended DCP Abba Kyari and 4 members of his team walking home has turned into a mirage as a Federal High Court sitting in Abuja dismissed a fresh bail application brought before the court. The court, presided over by Justice Emeka Nwite, dismissed the application on the grounds that the suspended DCP failed to establish why its previous decision that ordered his remand at Kuje Correctional Facility pending the determination of the case against him should be petitioned. Justice Nwite held that although Kyari and his co-defendants did not escape when Kuje Correctional Facility was recently attacked by insurgents, it's not enough reasons to prove that they will not jump bail once they are released from custody. He also dismissed Kyari's argument that the Kuje jailbreak constituted an exceptional circumstance that the court should consider in order to review its earlier ruling that denied him bail. Counsel to Abba Kyari, however, insists that the application before the court is not a fresh one.
We are going to study the ruling and know what step to take. We have taken the opportunity of speaking with our clients shortly, and they have given us the consent to take appropriate steps. We will sit down together and consider it. But for purposes of record, we did not make application for bail to court. The application we made to court is application for review of bail, considering the threat to their life and the recent jailbreak.
The accelerated hearing ordered by the court is, however, applauded by the counsel to ASP James Power.
My client has been denied bail before now. I have a bail application, further bail application before the court, but from the posture of the court, it appears that nobody will be granted any bail. However, I do not want to accuse the court or undermine the position of the court, but the proper thing to do is that if I feel that we are aggrieved, why not? We will go to appeal. Other than that, the accelerated hearing which has been granted by the court, we are ready.
Kyari, who once headed the Police Intelligence Response Team, IRT, is facing drug trafficking charge alongside 4 members of his team. The court had on March 28 declined to release the defendants on bail, pending the determination of the 8-count charge preferred against them by the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA.
To other matters now, domestic airlines operating in the country may have to begin to look for ways to offset the 19 billion naira debt owed the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority as soon as possible. It comes as a regulatory agency says indebted airlines must enter into an MOU to repay the debt. According to the NCAA, any airline that defaults 3 times will have its air operator's certificate suspended.
This letter from the Airline Operators of Nigeria to the Minister of Aviation is the subject at the center of this meeting. A meeting that attracts the Director General of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, other aviation agency heads, airline operators and ground handling companies. When the helmsman of the NCAA kicks off, it's in an angry tone. He accuses the airline operators of painting the agencies black despite their huge debts.
It is unfortunate AON has backed on a deliberate, disingenuous and misleading campaign of falsehood within and outside the industry. It is pertinent to note that as of July 31st, 2022, AON members have collected over 19 billion naira and over $7.6 million in TSC and CSC, which they have deliberately failed to remit the authority.
The regulator says it's ready to wield the big stick over any airline that does not stick to a repayment plan.
Any airline that has an outstanding debt from the TSC, CSC, or the charter cargo size must enter an MOU with the NCA for payment of this over a period of time, or the ATL and AOC will not be renewed. Any airline that defaults 3 times in a row in compliance with this MOU, their AOC automatically becomes suspended with immediate effect.
The airlines will not take this lying low. A member is displeased over the manner in which the NCAA has handled the matter.
The way you wanted to address us in this issue of this letter, to be honest, I do not agree with it. For me personally, we're one family. You need us as much as you need, we need you. If today we don't operate, none of you people will fly.
No sooner tempers flare.
That is what I told you. That is what I told you. Please, listen. No, you have spoken. Let me speak. You are the DG. You have spoken. You must allow me to speak. You must allow me to speak.
With this direction, another member apologizes.
The industry framework is. So we apologize. The AON understands, and I think you are angry. And I do not wish that you continue speaking in anger. I want to.
And the meeting moves into a closed-door session. In the midst of the chaos that the aviation industry is facing, which includes the rising cost of aviation fuel, aircraft capacity crunch, and scarcity of foreign exchange, many stakeholders believe all parties in the industry must work together like never before if the sector will survive these hard times. From Abuja, Bukola Joe Oketumbi, Channels Television News.
We'll stay on a little longer in Abuja. Here's Terry now with more on the news at 10. Hi, Terry.
Hello, Marachi. Let's go to the National Assembly now, where the House of Representatives Committee on Finance today expressed concern over the inability of some revenue-generating agencies to reconcile their remittances with the details in the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. At the resumed hearing of the 2023 to 2025 MTEF, the Deputy Chairman of the committee, Mr. Musa Abdullahi, listed some of the agencies found culpable, including the Energy Commission of Nigeria and the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, NOSTRA. Our correspondent, Dele Omoyeni, has the details.
The room is filled with officials of various revenue-generating agencies who are appearing before the House Committee to give account of their remittances to the Federation accounts, as well as their projection for 2023. However, some agency heads and the Deputy Chairman engage in a heated debate over details of these remittances.
I will not come here to come and lie on what I did not do. Please give us
the evidence. We are speaking to documents here, sir. We are speaking to documents. We are not here to be, we are not sentimental.
We are speaking to documents.
Hold on.
Chairman, sir, hold on, because I'm on camera.
The committee sends back some agencies to rectify their accounts with the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation.
I can't understand why in this age and era, with professionals like you, our operations will still be limited to manual. You do manual operation, you issue receipt manually. The feeling, what we get from those things is you possibly, the office is possibly trying to cut corners. So you've created windows to cut corners, because when you do things manual, you know what windows you're creating.
Members of the committee frown at what they describe as discrepancies in the remittances of some of the revenue-generating agencies.
2021, IGR 2.4 billion, IGR 13 million, operating expenses 2.46 billion. I mean, we must have details of the expenses, the expenditure. You received 2.4, you expended everything, we must see the details. Nigerians must see these details.
All the agencies, especially the Office of the Accountant General, they are our problem in this country. Because Nigerians will be shouting they are the politicians. Look at what my colleague has just read out. Look at it.
At the resumed hearing of the House Committee on Finance for the 2023 to 2025 MTEF, the House discovers that there are discrepancies between what revenue-generating agencies say they've paid to the Federation accounts and records that the Accountant General's office has on these payments. However, the House is disturbed that this could lead to further revenue leakages, and it says it will work with the offices of the Accountant General to ensure that payments are duly made with proper records. Dili Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
To security matters now, efforts aimed at decimating terrorists in Kaduna State continue, with a fighting patrol led by the General Officer commanding GOC-1 Division of the Nigerian Army, Major General Taurid Lagbaja, clearing bandits in several communities. He was accompanied by a team of operational commanders in the operations that took place in Buruku, Udawa, Manini, Barningwari, and Doka, among other settlements. A statement by the Director Army Public Relations, Onyema Nwachukwu, explains that the patrol team overpowered the bandits with superior firepower, neutralizing one of them, while 3 others were captured. The patrol team also recovered 1 AK-47 rifle, 27 rounds of 7.62 mm special ammunition, and 18 motorcycles. We're still ahead on the news at 10. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited confirms plans to issue its first IPO on the domestic stock market by June next year. That's on Business News. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the news at 10. To security matters now. At least 25,000 persons are missing in the country as a result of the security challenges in the Northeast. That's according to the head of the delegation of the International Community of the Red Cross, who added that more than 14,000 of those missing persons are children. He was speaking at a press conference to mark the 2022 International Day of the Disappeared in Abuja. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
It's the International Day of the Disappeared, and the National Human Rights Commission and the International Committee of the Red Cross are holding this press conference in Abuja to mark the day. The conflict in the Northeast since 2009 has left devastating impact, with at least 60,000 people reportedly killed, hundreds of thousands displaced from their ancestral homes, and according to the International Committee of the Red Cross, the whereabouts of over 25,000 others remain unknown.
Nigeria, unfortunately, has the largest number of missing persons ever registered by the International Committee of the Red Cross in Africa. Since the beginning of the conflict in 2009, more than 25,000 persons were reported missing to the International Committee of the Red Cross and the Nigerian Red Cross Society.
He further disaggregates the figures, which shows that children and women constitute more of the victims.
54% were minors at the time of their disappearance. In straight numbers, we are talking more or less about 14,000 children missing.
However, these figures are only a fragment of the reality, according to the organizers, as the lack of an official database for missing persons is still a major challenge in Nigeria, even though the federal government says it is already addressing the problems.
We are going to develop a database for the missing. And that database, we already have some rudiments of it, that we're going to work proactively to accelerate the process of doing an optimal database and then synchronizing it with our existing databases that are relevant so that there will be seamless continuity in updating the database.
On 30th August 2021, the Commission, with the support of the International Committee of the Red Cross, established a missing persons register in Borno State. The plan is to evaluate the performance of the pilot project after 1 year and expand it to other states.
The theme for the 2022 International Day of the Disappeared is Missing but Not Forgotten, and it is to give hope to the families of the over 25,000 Nigerians missing that there could be light at the end of the tunnel. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Now to Jigawa State, where the death toll arising from the flood that has ravaged communities there has risen to 51. The executive secretary to the State Emergency Management Agency, Mr. Sani Yusuf, said about 2,051 people have been displaced in Dutse, the state capital, as a result. According to him, the state government plans to relocate 404 mothers with their children to an internally displaced persons camp in Dutse. This brings the number of children in the camp to about 1,334, while 313 men are accommodated at the community primary school. The state government has also forwarded a report to the federal government seeking support on the disaster, which it says is beyond its capacity to handle. Well, that's all from the nation's capital. Back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Terry. Now to the raging strike by university lecturers. The Academic Staff Union of Universities is accusing the federal government of blackmail and insincerity in its claim of helping university students return to classes. The president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, has absolved the union of any blame, maintaining that the government can resolve the crisis in 24 hours if it is ready to show serious commitment to the issue. The ASU president was guest on Politics Today.
We had a meeting with government was in June, or May or June, when the chief of staff, the government director, met in a tripartite plus, what they refer to as a tripartite plus meeting. I think early June, we had that meeting, and we agreed that within 6 weeks we reconvene, and the committee will set up in place, will come back and report to us, and we'll take a final decision. But since now, that committee in attendance was the chief of staff, secretary to the federal government, the Sultan of Sokoto, Nairek, the president of Khan, and all the unions. And we met and raised the issues. And they gave the Nimibris committee time, 2 weeks or so to finish the negotiation, gave UTAS, what do you call it, ANIDA, 3 weeks to finish testing. And we thought that within the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks, this issue they will return back. The chief of staff will reconvene that meeting. Then we will strike our call off.
But has that not been overtaken by the Minister of Education taking over negotiations now?
Will you compare a minister, look at a committee headed by chief of staff and minister, which one is higher?
Have you met the minister?
We have not. We have not had any official meeting with him. Nothing. All we had are just unofficial meeting. That is it. Private meeting. That's not official meeting. We have not had any. as a union, we are open to invitation to anybody. We are willing. This issue can be resolved in one day if the government side is sincere and not just looking for ways either to punish the union or blackmail, as the Minister of Education said, that we want to use this, what we are doing to ASUU, to teach the labor a lesson. You can imagine that. The university are short. You are negotiating with the union and you say, I want to use this particular thing to teach the union a lesson. You can imagine that. Two, a minister is going to say, students, go and sue your lecturer because government delayed the process. You see, those are the things you should not hear in a sane system.
We'll return to River State now, where the government has inaugurated the Ogbunabali Sandfield in a state layout in Port Harcourt local government area. Governor Nyesom Wike explains that the project shows the strategic thinking of his government to provide value to the citizens on whose mandate he was elected. His special guest and Governor of Enugu State, Ifeanyi Ogwuanyi, who inaugurated the project, describes Mr. Wike as a standard bearer of project delivery.
Governor Nyesom Wike, accompanied by his special guest and Governor of Enugu State, Ifeanyi Ogwuanyi, are in the Ogbunabali area to inaugurate the Sandfield and estate layout in Port Harcourt City local government area. This 15.4 hectares of land reclaimed from a swampy criminal hideout is designed with a central water reticulation, sewage management and electricity supply systems, among other facilities. Apparently impressed by the structural plan, Governor Ogwuanyi eulogizes his host, saying his performance underscores the level of accountability by state government.
Governor Wike is an intensive leader who leads from the front. He is famed for his legendary knack for project execution and unrelenting crusade for the fundamental liberties as well as the economic interests of the people of Rivers State. Wike's administration has done well and is worthy of commendation. I therefore avail myself this opportunity to salute a standard bearer in project delivery.
On his part, an excited Governor Wike explains that the value of assets at the waterfront smart city will increase and is projected to accommodate at least 150 households.
Look how Ogbunabali is. Look at Eastern Bypass. How would you allow Eastern Bypass? How would you allow Ogbunabali Road? And look at this city. Who told you that good thing is not good? Who told you that? Security is tight. Every infrastructure has been provided. It's just for you to link. Sewage, everything. So you don't need to begin to dig your own sewage. No. To begin to do your own borehole. No. Everything is central. You won't tell us, oh, we have flooding here. There's no flood. By the time we commission, you walk down, you see the beauty. If it was overseas, you cannot buy a plot of land here, 400 million naira. If it was overseas, you can't. You can't. In overseas, you have a plot of land here. You will buy not less than $1 million US.
We are saying thank you, Jesus.
The development of this estate layout is said to fit into Governor Wike's idea of restoring Port Harcourt, the River State capital, to its glory days of being known as the Garden City of Nigeria.
Let's segue into business news now. Here's Anne Wawodo.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Amarachi. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited says that it will be ready to issue its first initial public offer to the investing public on the Nigerian Stock Exchange by June 2023. The group's chief executive officer, Mele Kyari, who made this confirmation today in Abuja, says that Africa's biggest energy company has evolved and is now positioned to forge its path towards becoming a giant in the global energy space. He explains that the oil company's estimated worth is $90 billion, and that's about 38.14 trillion naira, making it bigger than every other listed company on the stock exchange.
In today's context, the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated and Ministry of is holding in trust for the Federation, but they cannot do anything except the shareholders of Record Agri, which is the 200 million Nigerians, and that is why the PIA provided for a leverage of the National Economic Council to have a say in this process. And therefore, the board of the companies by law is required that Mr. President appoints the board of these companies on behalf of all of us. That whenever you dilute interest, even if it is 10% interest in these companies, that right for government to appoint vanishes automatically. It now becomes a matter for the shareholders, which includes private owners of this company, will do. So we are transiting, but as soon as you hear we're ready for IPO, it's all over also. The board will be appointed by the shareholders, which will include private equity holders.
One of Nigeria's leading financial institutions, Fidelity Bank PLC, has announced its plan to acquire 100% equity stake in the United Kingdom franchise of Union Bank. In a statement released on the Nigerian Exchange Limited's website, the bank's chief executive officer, Neke Onyalikwe, explains that the transaction is part of an expansion and diversification plan of the bank's services beyond the Nigerian market. The transaction is, however, subject to the approval of the United Kingdom's Prudential Regulatory Authority. The House of Representatives has summoned the Central Bank Governor, Godwin Emefiele, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, and the Director General of the Department of State Services, Magaji Bichi, to appear before them unfailingly on Wednesday over oil subsidy payments. The chairman of the ad hoc committee, Al-Mustafa Aliyu, made this known today at the ongoing investigation into trillions of naira paid as oil subsidies by the federal government to some agencies and oil marketers between 2013 and 2022. The panel is also investigating key ministries, departments and agencies of government, as well as oil marketing companies on the direct sale and direct purchase agreements entered into by key players on the issue. One of U.S. major carriers, Delta Airlines, says that it will suspend New York, JFK, and the Lagos flight with effect from October the 4th, 2022. In a statement on Tuesday, the airline said the non-stop flight service will be halted to fit the current demand environment. However, the airline says that it will continue to operate service between Lagos and Atlanta and offers onward connection to New York and then other cities across the United States. And on the markets today, it's another loss recorded. Overall value and index of Nigeria's stock exchange as profit-taking continued to take its toll on the bourse today. Let's hear the details from Will Ebon.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Another bloody day at the NGX as profit takers just won't let go. 19 billion naira lost today, and the all share index is falling further away from the 50,000 level. The biggest culprit today was MTN Nigeria. Its share price lost 1 naira to close at 199 naira as investors traded about 7 million units of its shares. However, we did see a bounce in the value of stocks traded today, worth over 3 billion naira. Zooming in on the gainers, we see eTransact on the leaderboard gaining 9.65%, while Codeville Solutions led the underperformers. Well, market watchers appear to still be trading cautiously as high inflation continues to bite. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Will Ibang. Back to you.
And that's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Umawadu. The rest of News at 10 continues with Amarachi.
Thanks, Lon. And the former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev has died at the age of 91. Mr. Gorbachev, who took over in 1985, is best known for opening up the USSR, or then USSR, and for his rapprochement with the West. But he was unable to prevent his country's imminent collapse in 1991. The hospital where he died said he had been suffering from a long and serious illness. Mr. Gorbachev became General Secretary of the Soviet Communist Party and de facto leader of the country at the age of 54. He was at the time the youngest member of the ruling council, known as the Politburo, and seen as a breath of fresh air after several aging leaders. In other news, the United Nations has issued an appeal for $160 million to help Pakistan cope with floods that have killed more than 1,100 people, affected 33 million people, and destroyed homes and means of livelihood. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The UN's Secretary-General has warned that Pakistan is facing a monsoon on steroids after floods submerged a third of the country. Antonio Guterres urged the world to come to Pakistan's aid as he launched a $160 million appeal to help the tens of millions affected in the disaster. At least 1,136 people have been killed since June, and roads, crops, homes and bridges have been washed away across the country. Around 33 million people have been affected. It's the most devastating floods to hit the country since 2010, the deadliest in Pakistan's history, which left more than 2,000 people dead.
I think it's going to be huge. So far, a very early preliminary estimate is that it is higher than $10 billion. My hunch is that this is going to be 2 to 3 times higher than what we are estimating.
And it's not just people who have been affected by the flooding. In the town of Charsada, the Lucky Animal Protection Shelter was right in the path of the devastating floods. The entire shelter flooded on Saturday, and it took over a day for shelter staff to bring all 250 animals to safety. Many of them now reside in nearby Peshawar. Shelter staff have asked for help from the Pakistani government in running their operation. Ukraine's military says it has destroyed key Russian control points, weapons and warehouses as it tries to take back the occupied city of Kherson. A spokeswoman for the Southern Military Command says bridges around the city have been rendered unusable after Ukrainian strikes. It follows weeks of Ukrainian attacks aimed at cutting off Russian forces in the southern region, which has been controlled by Moscow since March. At least 23 people have been killed in some of the worst fighting for years in Iraq's capital, Baghdad, sparked by a key leader's decision to quit politics. Gunshots and rocket fire rang out as supporters of Shia Muslim cleric Muqtada al-Assad clashed with security forces and militias aligned with Iran. Mr. Assad has ordered his supporters to withdraw from outside Parliament, where they have been protesting for weeks. Iraq has been in a state of paralysis since inconclusive elections in 2021. Sri Lanka's president says that his bankrupt country's talks with the International Monetary Fund for a rescue package have successfully reached the final stages as he presented an amended budget that seeks to tame inflation and hike taxes. It comes as police fired tear gas on students demonstrating against the detention of a student leader, also under anti-terror laws. The new budget comes amid a relative calm following months of public protests that led to the ousting of Wickremesinghe's predecessor and his family members from power. The highest brick tower in the world has had a special set of visitors as skydivers whizzed past the picturesque structure. Built more than 500 years ago, the 130-metre-high steeple at St. Martin's Church in Landshut was buzzed by experienced American Miles Daesch. His colleagues Marco Waltenspiel and Max Manno and Marco Fürst also made their mark on the old town in Germany, landing in the Isar River. And finally, one of the world's craziest culinary competitions has returned after a 2-year COVID-induced hiatus.
Genius use of the wigs there, just in case you were wondering.
A host of wrestlers took part in the 12th annual World Gravy Wrestling Championships in Lancashire. The event sees competitors grapple in a pool of gravy in 2-minute bouts, with points being scored for fancy dress, entertainment value and wrestling ability.
Well, you've got to be, number one, entertaining. Number two, you've got to come with the right spirit. Number three, you've got to be prepared to be thrown around in that.
Confidence. That's what it takes. It doesn't matter how strong you are, how little. You know, I'm 5 foot compared to this guy over here. It's purely confidence.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Time for sports news. Here's Ayotunde Balogun.
Many thanks, Marcia. Yes, indeed, it's time for sports news. And we're starting off with Serena Williams, who is hoping to continue her love affair with tennis after reaching the second round of the US Open. Her 6-3, 6-3 victory over Danka Kovanic earlier today comes ahead of her 41st birthday next month, joining the elite company of Martina Navratilova, Kimiko Krum and Sister Venus as the 4th player in the Open era to win a Grand Slam match in her teens, 20s, 30s and 40s. Now, the 23-time Grand Slam champion feels every win at Flushing Meadows is a bonus on her illustrious career. While Serena marches on, well, it's not the same news for her sister Venus Williams, as she tumbled out of the US Open at the first hurdle. Well, the 2-time US Open champion was beaten 6-1, 7-6 by unheralded Belgian Alison van Uitenwyk. Now, unlike her younger sister Serena, who has indicated she plans to retire after this tournament, the 42-year-old has given no clue as to when she will call time on her career. In football, former Manchester United striker Edinson Cavani says he decided to join Valencia Football Club in Spain, motivated by the football atmosphere that the club had. The Uruguayan national team forward was available after his contract expired earlier in the summer after spending the last 2 seasons at Old Trafford. Cavani has agreed to sign a 2-year contract and will be the reference up front to Italian manager Gennaro Gattuso. In the English Premier League, Yoann Wissa cancelled out Wilfried Zaha's sensational second-half strike as Brentford held Crystal Palace to a 1-1 draw at Selhurst Park. Fulham beat Brighton 2-1 at Craven Cottage as the Cottagers won for the 2nd time this season. Southampton came from behind to earn their 2nd win of the season with a 2-1 victory over Chelsea side lacking cohesion and a cutting edge at St Mary's Stadium. While Leeds also came from a goal behind to draw 1-1 with Everton in a pulsating encounter at Ellen Road. And that's a wrap on sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Back to you, Marachi.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. And the main news again. A building under construction collapsed today along the Beirut Road of Kano Metropolis, where 1 person was reported dead. Many others said to still be trapped in the structure. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night and stay safe.